What are the best and worst matchups for fantasy football in the early games of week number 11 in the NFL? It's time to find out right here as another Matchup Wednesday begins on Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm writing for sportingnews.com, NFL, and fantasy football, so I have my picks straight up against the spread, as well as look into sleepers and busts, and my weekly column, the start sits there for you, start 'em, sit 'em, as well as the rankings for the must starts of the week there for you. So breaking it all down at Sporting News, and we're doing it here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We turn our attention to the matchups for the week ahead. When we get to Wednesday, we do the first half of games today. We'll break down the second half there. And we're up to 15 games again this week after going 14 last week. We only have two teams on bye. That would be the Broncos and the Rams. Everyone else in action here in week number 11. And next week we'll have Thanksgiving. So a lot of action there early in the week. We still have one Thursday night game this week. We'll start with that one between the Patriots and Falcons. And we'll go through some 1 p.m. Eastern time games here. 7 games on today's show, 8 games on tomorrow's show. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are free and available to you on all platforms. All right, we will start with Thursday Night Football. The Patriots and Falcons. The Patriots are red hot. We're looking here early in the week. Should we have a return of Damian Harris? That's a big question mark we're looking at here in this week. He was in the concussion protocol and couldn't clear it last week. He stayed in it. He's limited here on Tuesday, so there's a chance to be cleared to play. That should make it more of a committee here with Ramondre Stevenson, but not fully getting the green light here. So if Harris misses, Stevenson locks in as an RB1. If they do play Harris this week, I think he goes back to RB2 status, so Stevenson should still have some value as a flex. But keep in mind, they probably won't have to throw a lot in this game. They are good touchdown favorites in this one. When you look at the spread, the Patriots are they're -7, so a whole touchdown on the road, which is pretty big on a short week. 47.5 is the over-under. So no other real injury concerns. I mean, Jonas Smith could miss another game. He's always limited in practice. They deactivated him last week, which was interesting, and immediately led to Hunter Henry having a 2-touchdown game. He'd been scoring consistently, but he took over as their primary target at tight end. They also use the wide receivers a little bit more. Kendrick Bourne has been close to a wide receiver 3 with his production of the season, falls into flex category. So if you need him, he's actually been more productive overall than Jacoby Myers. Myers finally scored, but Bourne has been doing that here all season. He's actually on pace for 1,000 scrimmage yards, believe it or not. So if you're desperate there for a wide receiver 3 or flex in a deeper league, you can look at Kendrick Bourne. I wouldn't really focus on Myers or really Nelson Aguilar anymore. Hunter Henry has been the primary target in key situations here for Mac Jones. Bourne still only seeing about 4 targets per game, so really hard to trust any of the Patriots wide receivers. So only if you're desperate and only with Bourne. Hunter Henry's locked in again as a tight end 1 solidly with his scoring, and he's just feeling it here with Jones. So he's in there. If you need a streaming quarterback, Mac Jones, we recommended, would be one of the top options. We also talked about Justin Fields here against the Ravens, who we like a little bit more, but Mac Jones, this rookie, can get it done. You're looking around 250 and 2 for Mac Jones there, so I wouldn't expect a massive upside there, especially if Harris returns. That's going to strengthen their running game in this particular matchup here. So, again, the Patriots' defense should dominate this game, so I don't see a lot of reason for Jones to really put the ball up in this game all that much. So keep that in mind. It's going to be low volume, high floor, but probably limited ceiling here for Jones in this game, as it usually is with Jones, given how well they play defense and run the ball behind him to that. So Bourne gets some consideration. Henry is a must start. Harris returns. He's a must start. Stevenson also has a lot of appeal in some form here this week, especially if you're missing Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon or Darrell Henderson out of your lineup. You can go there this week. Now, what do we do with the Falcons? It's not looking good for Cordarrelle Patterson here. Pretty much a game-time decision with his ankle injury. They might not risk it here. It's a short week. You also have Hayden Hurst potentially missing the game. So this lines up for Kyle Pitts having a pretty big role here, but that also is not good because that means the Patriots can really focus on taking Kyle Pitts out of the game. I think if Patterson plays, then they're going to make sure he doesn't beat them either as a runner or receiver in this one. So that only helps should Patterson go here. Wayne Gallman could see some big touches here. They've kind of faded on Mike Davis. They've realized he's not the guy here to handle the key touches. They think they realized that early with Patterson. Gallman may get a big opportunity here. And again, volume-based play is Gallman if you're desperate. Running back, say you had Patterson and you're playing him every week, you could go in that direction if you're desperate this week. But Kyle Pitts, he's still tied in one because of the usage, but don't be surprised if that's the one thing the Patriots end up taking away. So I don't expect a big game from Kyle Pitts, but at this point, the tight end landscape is very limited when Hunter Henry is a regular start here. So the good news is, again, no Hayden Hurst, so that should mean a lot of Ridley on the field, or no Ridley on the field, but Kyle Pitts on the field. And no Ridley is what I was about to say. So no Calvin Ridley, no Hayden Hurst. They got to throw and have high volume, and maybe the Patriots will have a big enough lead where they're not going to worry too much about the intermediate routes there to Pitts, and that might help. But all that coming back to Matt Ryan, you can't trust him in this game. I love the Patriots defense. They've just been bringing it every week. We thought it was a tough matchup against the Browns. They look spectacular there. Whip them. They should whip the Falcons all around here. So, and mostly Patriots here. Kyle Pitts is the only way I would go with the Falcons if Patterson doesn't play. If Patterson does play, just drop him down to more flex consideration. That's how well the Patriots defense is playing. And they did give up a big running game last week. So Gallman, with the volume, like D'Ernest Johnson, could do some damage there against the Patriots. They are much better pass defense and run defense with their landscape of their defense. So keep that in mind here, that you do have someone to play. Should Patterson play or Gallman fill in for him this week, you got to go there. And Pitts is the only other option. No going with Matt Ryan. I know every time you think it's a bad matchup, Matt Ryan seems to come through. Every time it was great, like the Cowboys last week, he doesn't. So it's hard to read him. He tends to be a little bit better at home. But I think Patriots will do enough to take away his key weapons. And again, not going anywhere near Matt Ryan in this particular matchup against the Patriots. Pass rush and pass defense, Matthew Judon all the way back through J.C. Jackson, very good at every level. All right, our next game we'll look at also should be rather lopsided here. Speaking of the Browns, who got beaten badly by the Patriots in New England, they come back home to Cleveland. They're 10-point favorites here against the Lions, who came off their first non-loss of the season, a tie at Pittsburgh, helped by Mason Rudolph being in there, and no Ben Roethlisberger, no Chase Claypool. Let's look at the Lions. I mean, DeAndre Swift might be the only option now. We talked about Swift and Hawkinson, TJ Hawkinson at tight end, but Hawkinson just had a 3-target game where he caught nothing. The Jared Goff-Hawkinson connection, they've been 3 big games, but otherwise it's been underwhelming here. He started out hot, but I think teams have realized they don't really have much of a wide receiver. Let's try to control Hawkinson, and the Jared Goff connection is so bad. So we're at a point where Goff really should be benched for David Blau. They're reluctant to do that because Blau is kind of a guy that they've had. Remember, he made starts for Matthew Stafford when he was on the team when Stafford was hurt and had the back injury. So there's some experience there playing, but not in this particular offense for Blau. So again, I think they have to seriously think about change. Their passing game is one of the worst in the NFL. Big development last week is Dan Campbell coming off the bye, taking over the play calling from Anthony Lynn, and that really just turned into a run-heavy approach. Will they keep that? It doesn't matter. DeAndre Swift is going to be the centerpiece here. They did lose Jamar Jefferson there, and Jamal Williams still battling that thigh injury, so you could see a little bit more of Godwin Igwebuike playing behind Swift, but still it's a Swift show on that side, and he'll be motivated with his fellow Georgia running back Nick Chubb on the other side. So Swift, Hawkinson, if you need him, play him. I mean, he might be better than any other option. He's still a very talented player. You're just going to hope for better things and maybe a touchdown. And the Browns, by the way, have given up multiple touchdown games to tight ends a couple times. Travis Kelce way back in week 1 and Henry just last week against the Patriots. So there's some hope that Hawkinson, who hasn't scored in a long time, can come through here with at least that to salvage his day in this matchup if you really need him. And again, it's tough to be stuck with somebody like Hawkinson, a guy that you know is talented but isn't producing, but you also know every time you don't play him, he's going to be kind of the guy that goes off. So just be careful with that. If you don't have a viable alternative, you're going to have to stick with Hawkinson. Now, on the Brown side of things, Nick Chubb should return from the COVID-19 list. He's vaccinated, so he should take over again from D'Ernest Johnson. So D'Ernest Johnson's had some good fill-in stints here against Denver and New England, but it's a Chubb show. We know Chubb took over a couple weeks ago against the Bengals. That feels like this game as well, where Chubb is all over the place. He's well rested, and they're going to give him a lot of carries here without Kareem Hunt. Anywhere else, I wouldn't go. I mean, Baker Mayfield's hurting. We don't know if he's even going to play. He's got the knee issue. He's got the shoulder issue. Here, they could play it safe with Case Keenum here and know that they can beat Detroit with a running game. So a lot of things to watch out there with Mayfield. So then if Keenum's in there, you really can't trust Jarvis Landry, the wide receivers, the tight ends, and all that. So it's really Nick Chubb and the defense, and that's a pretty good DFS stack this week as well. We love those running back defense special team stacks as well as quarterback wide receiver / tight end stacks, and here's one that you can definitely target this week: Chubb and the Browns. And that's all I want to see here, because the Browns defense is going to be angry. They're upset. Myles Garrett and the company did not play well last week, so a lot of that onus is going to be on the coaching staff there, and Joe Woods and Kevin Stefanski to get them right. And I think we'll have a get-well game here, but they'll keep it to basics, running game and defense, and that's where you want to invest in the Browns this week. Hey, fantasy football fans, this is Vinnie Iyer with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about, Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use the promo code TOUCHDOWN and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay a full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people drive a lot or are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. Cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or need gift card even for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get to 50 cents per gallon cash back in your first tank. Again, make sure you use that promo code TOUCHDOWN at Get Upside. All right, it's time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football on a Matchup Wednesday. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you, as always, on all platforms wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let us pivot to a very good matchup for the 49ers. Coming off that smash game against the Rams, just dominated the game from wire to wire there with their offense and their defense. The 49ers go on the road. They've been very good on the road in the East Coast with Kyle Shanahan. They finally got their first home win last week, so a lot of confidence. 49ers can sense being back in the playoff picture for sure in the NFC. So they're not going to let down here. They're going to keep it going. It's a short week, I know that. But the 49ers, the matchups across the board are fantastic. George Kittle can destroy this matchup. I think Deebo Samuel has another massive game, and there's no one who can stop Deebo and the Jaguars here. So Kittle and Samuel do their thing. I think Brandon Ayuk gets on the fun. So I like Jimmy Garoppolo this week. Streamer and DFS option, really cheap here for your 49ers. Garoppolo's played really well, except for that Cardinals game where he had a few turnover issues. But, yeah, he's locked in, and maybe that motivation of Trey Lance potentially starting over him and the 49ers fading out of the playoff picture has Jimmy G locked in. But it also helps you have George Kittle now to help Samuel and Ayuk. So their weapons are coming together. You like Eli Mitchell out of the backfield. They're 6.5-point favorites here on the road. 45.5 is the over-under here. So I look at the 49ers. It's all the principles that you would get in here, and Garoppolo if you need streaming there. Mitchell is an RB2 just based on maybe not having touchdown potential. Samuel is a smash wide receiver 1. I think Ayuk falls into strong wide receiver 3. George Kittle, a top 3 tight end this week. And we like their defense as well. Really playing well with Nick Bosa. That front started to come alive there. The secondary started to play a lot better as well. They've been underachieving all season. So Trevor Lawrence in a heap of trouble here against his defense that's revitalized here. So defense is good. If you need Robbie Gould, he looked pretty good last week, kicking a 50-yard field goal against the Rams. If you need him at kicker, he's back and looking like the old Robbie Gould. So everything you can with the 49ers, get it in there and play it this week within reason. You're not going to like Trent Sherfield or some weird player like that. But any one of the principles of the 49ers should go off in this game, because sometimes it's just very simple to beat a team like Jacksonville. They just have too many weapons for that defense here to handle, and just the short passing and getting it all out quickly, that really hurts the Jaguars as well, because the 49ers can get big plays no matter how they slice it in this game for Kyle Shanahan. Now for the Jaguars, where do you go? I mean, I think it's James Robinson and nothing else. I really don't like Dan Arnold. Jimmy Ward, when he's in there, plays pretty well against a tight end. I know they allowed a touchdown to Tyler Higbee, but they pretty much were in control of the game, so it didn't really mean much. I mean, that could happen again where Dan Arnold gets some garbage, but in general, the 49ers have been good against the tight end, even with that Higbee game the 49ers are pretty darn good by the numbers. Jaquaski Tart is out, but Ward came back. He had the pick 6 last week against Matthew Stafford. So they have enough here without Drake Greenlaw, without Tart to handle Dan Arnold if he's going to be the only option. It takes a lot of pressure off their corners, not having to worry really about Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault Jr. That's one of the biggest tragedies here for the Jaguars offense. Without DJ Chark, you thought those wide receivers would be more involved, actually less involved. Look, the 49ers are going to see that Arnold is the guy that Lawrence depends on. They're also looking at Jamal Agnew. These are two matchups they can take out of the game easily. So I would avoid Agnew and Arnold if I can, not going anywhere near Trevor Lawrence. James Robinson seems to get it done just like last year. Doesn't matter the matchup, doesn't matter the place. If he's healthy and out there, he's going to get volume. Always has a shot at a touchdown. He's going to be involved in the passing game. So James Robinson, as usual, will come through for you as an RB2 and maybe an RB1 if he can get in the end zone here for you. But James Robinson's on an island here alone for the Jaguars in fantasy, while the 49ers have a lot of company with their principal offensive skill players. All right, the next game we'll talk about, we'll flip to Buffalo. So we'll stay on the East Coast, but go into a much colder place in Orchard Park, New York. The Colts are visiting, and it's a 7.5 point favoritism there towards the Bills. It's a 50 over under, so expecting some points in this one, mainly from the Bills side. So quite a few heavy favorites in our first 4 games there. We talked about the Patriots, 7-point favorites, the Browns, 10-point favorites, 49ers looking good, and the Bills looking good at home here. Good get-well game last week against the Jets, and they should feel good about this one, returning home. The Colts play a lot of the zone defense. We know that, so it's going to be more patience required here for Josh Allen. So that means it's the principles. You stick with your main guy, Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley really hurting with a ribs injury, so you can't totally trust him. They're not throwing Emmanuel Sanders enough, so I would take Beasley and Sanders off the radar here for wide receiver. 3 options. Diggs had his best game of the season last week, so he's locked in this matchup as a wide receiver 1. The Colts secondary is not that good, and Diggs can scheme himself open all over the field. You also have potential for the Bills running game to get going, but the problem is you have Matt Breida. And the Colts are a good run defense. Really, other than the Bills, they're the team that slows down running backs the most with their defense. So, yeah, not feeling it here with Zach Moss or Devin Singletary, especially now that one Matt Breida is in the mix. So can't go with the running backs, can't go with the extra wide receivers. So where else do we go with Josh Allen, who's a top QB this week? With Diggs, it is Dawson Knox at tight end. I really like what he can do here underneath routes. We saw Dan Arnold have a pretty good game for the Jaguars last week. The way the Colts play defense, it screams use the tight end and the guy that can stretch the seam here. He had some opportunities early, but they kind of forgot about him because the running game was so good. The running game is not going to be so good this week. So when it requires Josh Allen to be patient, working down the field, and Beasley's hurt, that says it's going to be a lot of Diggs and Knox here this week. They're going to use the running backs as well for some production. But again, the 3-headed monster there and a limited rushing attack against a very good run defense, you can't go there this week. I also like the Buffalo defense, so not a stack with one of the running backs, but Bills defense is a must-play this week at home against Carson Wentz. Wentz really had a clunker. He was on that multiple touchdown roll, but the Jaguars, of all teams, quieted him down just like they quieted Allen down the week before. So on the road in the elements, you play Jonathan Taylor, you play Michael Pittman, hope for your best. Taylor's still an RB1. He's smashing it as the best player in fantasy football this year. Michael Pittman has just been too good where even in this tough matchup, you still play him and he drops more into wide receiver 2-3 borderline here, but nowhere else I'm stretching in this Colts offense and not going to play the Colts defense at all on the road against the Bills. All right, we still have 3 more games to talk about in this show. We'll have the Dolphins-Jets game. We'll have the much-anticipated Cam Newton start as Washington travels to the Panthers, and we'll also talk about the Ravens-Bears game. Before we do that, I got to tell you more about Built Bar, the best-tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried a Built Bar by now, you're missing out. They say it's a protein bar, but it does not taste like one. You have to try one of these amazing bars yourself to believe it. Most protein bars are chalky or waxy or just plain hard to choke down. A Built Bar is soft, covered in 100% chocolate, real chocolate, and when you bite into it, you know you're eating something different. It's more of an experience, one that you'll enjoy. In fact, you'd swear you're eating a candy bar. It is a protein bar that tastes like a dessert. Built Bars are all low carb, low calorie, low fat, low sugar, and high protein. So all the healthy benefits on top of just being purely delicious. And another great thing about Built Bar, there are so many flavors, so many mouth-watering flavors, including coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, coconut almond, salted caramel, double chocolate, and cherry barcia. Sometimes they have special flavors as well. Right now, They did have a blueberry muffin that was pretty darn good here, special flavor. And this month, Built is coming out with new limited time flavors every 3 to 4 days. So check the website often. You don't want to miss out here at Built.com. All you have to do is go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. We're back and better than ever. New web interface for the start of the basketball season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline, your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile device to sign today and receive your 50% welcome bonus and your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus there. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. You'll find them all at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easy way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, it's time to close our show here with 3 more matchups that we'll look at from the early side of games. Don't forget, we will close looking at the matchups here tomorrow on Matchup Thursday. Makes sense to follow up Matchup Wednesday here on Locked On Fantasy Football. So we'll get it through that Cowboys-Chiefs marquee late afternoon game. We also have the Steelers and Chargers playing on Sunday night, and capping things off with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers hosting the Giants there on Monday night. So we'll get through all those games tomorrow there on Matchup Thursday. So let's finish up Matchup Wednesday here. The Dolphins and Jets. I actually like the Jets to win this game. The Dolphins are 3-point road favorites, but something tells me the Jets are going to play well. Before we came on, we learned that Joe Flacco is starting, not Mike White, not Zach Wilson, not Josh Johnson. It is Joe Flacco. The reasoning was he can handle the Dolphins' blitz. We'll see about that. But I don't know how I feel about this. I don't think it changes all that much with what the Jets' principles are that we're looking at. I think he's going to be more savvy about the short to intermediate passing game. So that could actually be good for Elijah Moore and the fellow rookie there, Michael Carter, with the other rookie, Zach Wilson, not playing. So check downs and all that, beating the blitz. So we'll see. Maybe Flacco still has the big arm to get it to Corey Davis. I think he's hurt the most here. I think you'll see a lot of Moore and Carter. I wasn't into Corey Davis all that much, and with Flacco starting there, and his arm is not what it once was. We know it was pretty strong and could push the ball downfield. The Dolphins are going to blitz, so he's going to have to get the ball out quickly in this one, and that's the whole reasoning behind going with Joe Flacco, the veteran that they had with the most experience. So that means checkdowns, shorter passes. That's great news for Michael Carter and Elijah Moore, I think. So Elijah Moore checks into me as a strong wide receiver 3. Michael Carter, once again, in this matchup is excellent. He's definitely an RB2 with some upside here this week. I also sneakily like the Jets defense. Shh, don't tell anyone this week, but people listen to stuff that's being said. And Rex Ryan and Robert Saleh and this defense, they've heard the noise that they shouldn't be compared to any good defense for the Jets. Well, they don't have a lot of talent back there, but they do have a lot of heart. We know their secondary has been playing pretty well. We also know they play that zone defense. And we know that the Dolphins are not a field-stretching team. So this may not be good because the Jets can come up and tackle and take care of that. Here, they were trying to be a field-stretching team, but that hasn't quite happened with Tua Tagovailoa's injury, Jacoby Brissett playing in here. So expect Tua to play, but do you really want to trust him on the road in the elements with his finger and all that? I mean, it wasn't like they were highly productive last week. They were able to beat the Ravens, but that was with defense this week. So I kind of look at this game. It's going to be a downside for the Dolphins. That said, I do like Myles Gaskin. You got to play Mike Gesicki. You got to play Jalen Waddle because I think there's going to be some points in this game, but there's also going to be some mistakes here by both quarterbacks. So both defenses, you can look at streaming. Still can get on the principles here. I think there's going to be a big play on defense and some messiness. It's going to be in the low 20s, but player principles that are producing for your teams. Again, I feel actually a little bit better about Carter and Moore than I do about Gaskin in this game. But, so again, Mike Gesicki's not going to get blanked again. I'm pretty confident about that. He's going to put up some numbers in this one after the real big disappointment in that great matchup against the Ravens. So he'll be okay. Back end, tight end 1 as usual. You have Jalen Waddle. I think he's a good wide receiver 3 option, just like Moore is in this game. And again, I like Carter a little bit more than Gaskin if you're trying to make that decision here in fantasy football this week. And again, 45 expecting a lot of points. I think it's going to be, again, low 20s. It's going to live up to that expectation. You'll get some points. You'll get some defensive work here in this game. It'll be as pleasing as it can be between these two teams for fantasy football here in Week 11. All right, let's pivot to Washington. The football team is going to the Panthers, and we know what's happening in this game. Cam Newton being prepped to start. Everyone's hyped about Cam Newton, but it's also Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, Taylor Heineke, remember him? He was a former Panther. He's got some motivation here in this game. 43 is the over-under, so not expecting a lot of points. Compared to all the other games that we've talked about so far, that is the lowest total, so don't get too excited about Cam Newton's return here, given the implied total in this one. So, and I'm not going to Cam Newton at all. I mean, I think it's Christian McCaffrey, and it's going to be a lot of him. I still could see Cam getting a couple touchdowns, but this Washington defense, I think everyone's going to say Chase Young and Montez Sweat are out, but Montez Sweat was already out last week, and they really did a number of the Bucs. Then they lost Chase Young pretty early in that game, and they still control the Bucs. So inside, don't forget about those guys, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. They can cause some trouble up front for that Panthers offensive line as well. And McCaffrey's just matchup proof. I mean, they're going to get him on the outside in the passing game and dump offs and all that. This interior pass rush is going to get it going. So, another game where I like the two defenses here. The Panthers at home, Washington on the road. Washington really showed something last week, fixed a lot there for Rivera and Jack Del Rio. The Panthers typically play better defense at home. They do have some bodies missing there, but they should be okay in this one, given the low-scoring nature. So, let's quickly go through Cam Newton. I'm going to not start unless I'm in a super flex deeper league 2QB. I might look at Cam, but I'm not playing him in any 12 to 14 team league, that kind of situation this week. I think Washington defense is going to keep playing pretty well. McCaffrey plays. I like DJ Moore to be on track here. Robbie Anderson, you could look at, but I don't expect them to light it up. That's what I feel like. Washington's kind of fixed some things from knowing what they did last week to Brady. So again, DJ Moore, I think, has the better yardage day and has a decent day enough to put him in as wide receiver 3 this week. Anderson is a touchdown-dependent wide receiver 4 or flex. I look at it. McCaffrey, easily, when he's on the field, he's always RB1. The key for him is getting in the end zone this week. Let's not have Cam vulture a couple of touchdowns passing and running. We want McCaffrey, CMC, to get it done, and I think he will in this game as the primary source of offense, as usual, for the Panthers. So don't be fooled by Cam. It's still CMC here in Carolina. So it's another good stack there, McCaffrey and the Panthers defense. Now, I think Taylor Heineke is going to play well. Would I play him in season long? Probably not. Would I look at him at DFS? Yeah, a little bit more because I like the value here. But in season long, I don't think you need to go there. But if I was going to play one quarterback in this game, it would be Heineke over Newton. The game script could also really help Heineke in this one. So I also like the way he played last week. He was balling. He was back to the playground. He was running around a little bit. They also have Terry McLaurin. We'll see about Logan Thomas coming back. Ricky Seals-Jones could be on the shelf. But they found something in DeAndre Carter last week. They also found something in Antonio Gibson. So I really like the running backs in this game. And stacks here to be had. Contrarian stack from McCaffrey and Panthers D could be Gibson and Washington D. So something to look at in DFS this week. Terry McLaurin, I think, is going to have a very good game. The Panthers secondary is pretty good, but I think McLaurin, he's due for one of those games, 100 yards and a TD. It's coming here for Heineke. That's going to help him produce. I think you'll see a little bit more of J.D. McKissick, but that also means Gibson more in the passing game as well. So the Panthers can be run on, so that's really good news for Gibson, who had a couple TDs, really ran hard, and was as effective as he could be against that tough Buccaneers run defense last week. Panthers not nearly as daunting up front here to run on. So love Gibson, love McLaurin. Again, we'll see about tight end, but they can move it around with other guys. DeAndre Carter, we saw that last week for Washington. I wouldn't go start Carter, but the principles here, McLaurin and Gibson. Heineke, not a bad stack that you can put in with McLaurin in the fantasy DFS environments this week as well. All right, the final game we'll break down, and this one I think is going to be a pretty good one as well. 45.5 is the over-under. The Ravens are 6-point favorites going into Chicago. Bears coming off a bye here. Let's start with the Bears. And I think they're going to fix some things with Justin Fields. That means letting him loose, throwing him downfield. That means running it quite a bit. That's going to be some problems for the Ravens, who are depending on the blitz. They're playing one single coverage. I think they're actually going to be easy looks for Justin Fields this week. And there's going to be some volume, with Lamar Jackson on the other side. So he's going to be motivated, come off the bye. Let's hope that Matt Nagy doesn't rein him in again. Just let this kid loose and see what he can do. Running, passing, improvise a little bit, let him go to work. And I think they will. The matchups are pretty good for the wide receivers, but I still like Darnell Mooney a lot more than Allen Robinson. If you're desperate for Robinson to do something, maybe he's a wide receiver 4 or flex. But for me, I'm looking at Mooney and that connection. Little 2-touchdown game last time for Mooney there against the Steelers. It gives you a lot of hope here that Fields-Mooney is going to be a nice little combination here going forward. I think it's going to be a great combination long-term, but short-term here for the rest of the season, something we're going to watch here with the Mooney and Fields. So that's another sneaky stack, folks. Mooney and Fields to go at a pretty cheap one at that in the DFS this week. So you can go in that direction. David Montgomery is the guy to start here in the backfield. You can't go with Khalil Herbert. Montgomery well rested. You figure he's going to get the normal workload here as a starter for the Bears. So he's an RB2 for sure. Again, Robinson, buyer beware there to play. The sleeper, I think, is Cole Kmet. You look at tight end, he was a lot more involved, and they've been praising him a lot, these offensive coaching staff for the Bears. So Cole Kmet finally could be unwrapped here and makes sense. He's a good security blanket, good athlete, good guy for Fields there to throw to. So I think it's going to be a lot of Fields to Mooney and Kmet in this game with a little bit of Montgomery out of the backfield and some Robinson to support them when needed. So there's going to be success in the Bears passing game. Fields is going to get it done on the ground. So I do like Justin Fields a lot. I think he's going to be a top 12 QB. That's my bold prediction here of the week here. And again, the volume is going to be pretty decent with Lamar on the other side. So Lamar, top 5 QB. This is a tougher matchup than anticipated here. The Bears, look, you have Khalil Mack potentially returning. Eddie Jackson could be in the lineup. You have a pretty good shutdown corner in Jalen Johnson. So temporary expectations here for Marquise Brown. I still think he rebounds pretty well and could score on a long touchdown. But Jalen Johnson's a legit pretty good corner here. So watch out for that here in this game. And Rashad Bateman should stay busy. He's been really effective when teams have tried to double team or take Brown out of the game. We've seen that for 3 straight weeks here. So Bateman continues to play well. The rookie from Minnesota, I think he's a wide receiver 3. Brown stays as wide receiver 1. Mark Andrews, as usual, top 3 tight end there with Travis Kelce and George Kittle. So no worries about Andrews after he looked good last week and did the damage there. Scored against the Dolphins. One of the things that went right actually for Miami in that game, or in Miami in that game for Baltimore. So again, there we'll see about the backfield. There's a little bit of cloud over it. They did release Le'Veon Bell. That was news we learned about before we started recording the show. So that means Latavius Murray should be back. So that complicates things with Devonta Freeman. I don't know if you can start him with confidence. The Bears are decent against the run, a little bit more vulnerable against the pass. So yeah, you might have to pivot off Freeman if Murray returns, because that just makes it a little bit more complicated, because Murray can do a lot more than Bell. And we should say that Bell's release indicates that Murray will play this week. So, yeah, so Brown, Bateman, Andrews, Lamar, play those guys. The Ravens defense also not bad in this situation. Justin Fields is a rookie. Mistakes if he puts up numbers, but we know it was disappointing for the Steelers there in the matchup home on Monday night. So on the road here, just temporary expectations. The Ravens defense simply is not that good, and that's why I like good production here, sneaky production for Justin Fields this week. I got to tell you about another show here on the Locked On Network. It's called Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. We talk about gambling a little bit here with the over-unders and try to help us in fantasy football. Well, you can get all the betting information, analysis, and advice you need on Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. All right, that wraps up this matchup Wednesday here for Locked On Fantasy Football, breaking down the first half of games roughly. We still have the back half, so we actually have 8 games for you tomorrow. We did 7 today, so can't wait to talk about that on matchup Thursday. All right, and have a great rest of your day. This has been Vinnie Iyer for Locked On Fantasy Football, and we'll catch you tomorrow there to finish breaking down all the games of week number 11.